All right, great. Do folks want to just share what they what their name is, why they came here, and if they've had any experience? You can start.
Sure. My name is Rosetta, aka Rose. I'm brand spanking new. I literally just heard about this on my phone a couple hours ago. So it must be just met. But I just started selling at crafts fair. I'm still learning and searching my way in the dark, and I just thought, oh, this is perfect because I'm definitely hungry for information and knowledge.
Great. Darcy?
Oh, I'm Darcy. JR just invited me here, which I think, because I've been selling a couple things that I've made, and I think it's getting to a point where there might be something else there, so hopefully I can learn something here.
My name is Saeed, and I came here to basically know what people are doing and how they try to sell their stuff.
Hi, my name is Michelle. I make homemade pet treats, and I sell at local fairs and events. And people keep asking me, do I sell online? And I don't. So I'm hoping to learn something.
I'm Lisa. Michelle and I have been long friends, and my kids actually started a business, a candy skewer business, and I'm now roped into. And same, like we're just doing like craft fairs and things, and we don't really know anything beyond that. So I want to learn.
Sherry, maybe?
I'm Sherry. So far, I've just done work that's like commission projects. I've never sold things online or in craft fairs, but every time I do a commission project, I think, shame I just spent all this work and I could just make a couple more if I had a buyer. So I'm curious to see if this happens.
I'm Vincent. I've never sold anything. I just want to know what other people's experiences are.
I'm Brenda. I'm the facilitator for Make Radio and Outreach, and I've never made anything to sell, but as the outreach person, I like to know what's going on.
I'm Rich. I made an electronic device in California and sold over 300 of them, all by word of mouth. And I still have the ability to make more, and I'm thinking about, well, maybe I'll do something with them. And how would I go about getting them out there? How would I, how can I monetize it in the modern day?
Great. Well, hopefully we can answer that. Why don't we just among the panelists, and we have one remote, so we'll see how that works audio wise. But why don't we do us first, and then we'll try you, Christina. We'll see if we can get it going. So I'm JR, and my brother has a business selling a number of products, but primarily these little root pods for planting. So I'm going to share what I've learned there, but I also have them set up the MakeHaven store through PayPal. So I'll just show you guys both of those tools as an option.
My name's Paul, and I sell something that you don't even know exists. I sell the world's greatest backpacking bidet. I kid you not.
Let me get in front of your camera, JR.
Oh, yep.
Am I in? Hi.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Iris. I sold a few of a thing a few months ago, but the specific thing that I learned about in the process is how to use online 3D printing services with Etsy to have things directly delivered to people without me having to lift a finger. And this seemed like something that might be interesting to people, so I figured I'd share.
Hi, I'm Christina. I have been doing a registered small business in LLC just this past year, but have been selling things here and there online for a while, full-time since COVID. But I've had an Etsy shop for 7 years now and a website for about a year. And then did my first craft fair, which was the night market. That was a good experience. And my business is primarily started off with, it's textile crafts. So sewing, primarily what I sell.
Thank you. Great. So I'm going to jump into it, and I'm going to share my screen on here. My primary role with selling things that have an online component is with the MakeHaven store. So that looks like this. It's just a list of different materials that people at MakeHaven can purchase. We can have people add to a cart. They can purchase immediately. It also delivers the products on the tools that are related. So that was all just done with a custom website, which is a bit of work. I use PayPal as the back end. PayPal's nice because there's a couple of ways to do it. If you're a person that's able to work to customize something, you can actually customize a URL that goes to it, and that will populate the cart, or you can pre-design a button. So I'm going to say, so if we click add to cart on this grinding belt, for example, it's going to come through and show that that grinding belt is there, and have anything else that's pre-existing in the cart be in the cart, and then we can add different items. So this is a pretty simple way to do things. I'm not going to break down the URL in detail, but if we look at it in a notepad, you can get a sense of, sort of in the way again. You can get a sense of what is there. I'm going to increase the font. Better. So it's MakeHaven. So the email address is store@MakeHaven, and there's these and symbols between them, the item name, and these are just in place of spaces, but it's saying the grinding belt, and the amount is $250. So it passes that URL. PayPal creates a page and then does the transaction. And I'm able to pass a custom piece of information, which is sandpaper. So all our different types of sandpaper fall in category sandpaper. And on the back end, we can categorize that. That's a little bit more of like a developer-y way to do it. Another way that you can use PayPal is their pre-existing buttons. So I'll show you what that looks like. And this is what I've been working with Darcy on. It depends on what type of PayPal account you have. So you're going to have to potentially look up how to find where to get to these buttons. And you might also find that they kind of push you to PayPal checkout, which you have to pay for. But you should have the ability to get these free buttons. Often it's under account and then account settings and then seller tools. It'll just depend on if you have a business or personal account and so on. But here you can see we have different buttons, and I'm going to click on one of them. And I clicked on Smart button, but you can have single select list. You can describe your item. You can set up your tax rate, your fee. You can add options. So options would be like red, $10, blue, $12. You have some limited options as far as the style, and then you're going to get code. So again, I'm going to jump over. So I copied the code, and this is going to be something that PayPal generates that you would put into a website. So you're not supposed to really understand it, but you would copy and paste that code in, and then you would get a button embedded in a website. There are a few different buttons that act differently. So I did a smart button. The smart button has a lot of extra code and maybe nicer on mobile or not mobile, but there's also a standard button. That's what Darcy and I were doing, which is kind of the older one, but might be more compatible with different situations. Mine shows a donation button because it's registered under a nonprofit. So you might see different options, but the general principle is you can set up products, create buttons, and then those buttons sit on a page. And the two options are add to a cart or buy now. So that is my quick look at PayPal. I'm going to talk a little bit about Amazon and how it connects to Shopify, but I think Christina also uses Shopify. So I'd rather hear what she has to say first, and then jump off of that. Yeah.
Before you bounce, I want to ask you a question about PayPal. So would you
Yeah.
say that this PayPal integration was primarily useful for somebody who is making their own website and then they can add PayPal integration to it, as opposed to somebody that is going through something like Etsy, where they probably already have some kind of payment system built
Yeah.
in, right?
This is for people who are building their own website. And it is, in some cases, you could use like Google Sites. You could do a very simple website. And it's nice because it doesn't have a subscription fee. You have a transaction fee, but if you're going very, very low volume and you just wanted to have somebody once in a while buy a very specific thing, it might be a good option. Although I'll admit that PayPal can be very frustrating with all of their menus and confusion and everything. So it is not without its own pain.
And what kind of delays are you seeing between when somebody purchases a thing until that money lands? I assume it lands in your account, like you're doing like a bank account link where, like how does the money come to you, and how much delay is there? So
it's minutes. So I'll see it pretty much immediately after.
Okay.
I mean, maybe even like 30 seconds.
In your PayPal account.
In the PayPal account, correct. Okay. And then once you've qualified, so you have to have a certain number of transactions, you have to connect a bank account, they have to believe you're real and not embezzling money. And then it is like 2 to 3 days between when you initiate a transfer and when it shows up.
So it's kind of like Venmo.
Oh, it's very much like Venmo. In fact, they're owned by the same company.
Quick question. So this button, you can just, it's like an object you can put anywhere on your page, on your web page, where you want it.
You have to be able to add HTML, but that's the thing. And then now I was going to show you how transactions come in, but it's now trying to make me confirm my phone number, so we're going to skip that for the moment.
Is PayPal the only option?
The only option? No, I'm just giving an example of one option. There's lots of other payment processors out there. Stripe is one that is pretty popular and has buttons and things like that. And there are other minor players, I'm sure. I think Stripe is a later entry and actually is easier to integrate with a lot of different things. So if you're more of a coder type, you might look at a Stripe as a strong alternative to a degree. But I'll answer one or two more.
So can the button go into an email?
So that's one of the reasons that PayPal has that format where you can create links. And one of the options you can do in some types of the buttons is to create a link, and that's labeled as an email link. And so yes, you can essentially, and then you would create an image. So it's just a link that ends up going to the PayPal transaction. But you can create an image that looks like a button. And that's what people do sometimes, or they create a landing page and then they send a link to the landing page. The person goes to that landing page, then that's where they click the button. Because it seemed like the technology worked for Christina, and I'm like, well, let's do her next.
Okay, so Etsy primarily is a great starter, I would say, if you're looking for e-commerce sort of online selling. Etsy has 2 platforms, paid and non-paid. The difference is that Etsy has a great way of pushing people to do things to get visible. One of those is paying for your account. If you have a paid account, the benefits is that your listing fees come back to you. They're credited back. Every listing you make is a fee. They charge you for that. And you would get a credit for ads if you wanted to do Etsy ads. So there are benefits with paying for your account. I believe it's $10 a month. It's not crazy. I would say free is best to start off with. Etsy creates your link, and it's really easy to start doing listings on them. They create your link, which essentially is your store. And your dashboard tells you your views and things to start creating listings and getting things on Etsy. It actually, if it will go. super easy. Etsy's really good at making things easy and getting you started. So these are all of my listings. You can modify, you can change. If I wanted to add, it walks you through it. You would add your photos, you would add video. I recommend video. Everybody loves to watch things. So if you can add that in, titles, always use tags. That's a big one. Tags, any way you can make yourself visible on Etsy without paying and jumping through hoops is the best way. So the great way to do that is tags. Tags are basically like hashtags that you would use to find yourself. Same thing like Pokemon or whatever it is that you have that you want to use. That would be there. Your pricing. Etsy also, speaking of pricing, recommends that anything over $50 be free shipping. If you do another one of these sort of like initiatives with Etsy, they bump you up on your visibility. So every time you do something that they request that you do, you get bumped up in visibility. So Etsy just started something called Star Seller. And Star Seller ranks you based on your reviews, your shipping, and your customer service. So every time somebody likes something, you get ranked. The higher the rank, you get a Star Seller badge, and that means you get bumped up on the list for visibility. Etsy ads is another great way to get bumped up on the list of visibility, except it's expensive. The good thing with Etsy though is that it can post on Google, which is good. But I've actually found if you are savvy with social media is definitely your best bet for advertisement. You can do so much with social media. And if you have Facebook, for example, or Instagram, since they're owned by Meta, you can advertise on one and it cross posts to the other. So huge benefit with doing that. I was doing that for a long time because Etsy ads can get expensive. The good thing about Etsy ads here, hang on, let me show you. Let me get out of here. If you're someone like me that is a slow social media poster because it's all about how the frequency that you post, Etsy ads, because I had to stop it. That's why it says you're missing out. You get a $5 credit when you pay for your account. So that's the benefit. The minimum's $1 a day. So they'll advertise up to that amount and then they'll stop for the day. You can change your threshold. But it does bring in customers because I feel like Etsy has such a huge base of people that you're going to get a lot of your visibility through Etsy. Unless you're really good at advertising yourself. As far as shipping goes, Etsy takes care of everything, which is a great benefit for Etsy too. They take care of the taxes. They take care of international. Anytime there's a new law that comes up, Etsy will notify you and let you know. Right now, Germany, I think, has a new packaging law that just came effect. So they'll walk you through how to fix that so you're not caught. They do all the customer codes. Everything is pretty self-explanatory when you start doing Etsy. And if you decide, the other great thing is if you decide that you want to switch from Etsy to a website, you can fully integrate as well. What else can I say? Finances, here's another thing which is really good. You can pay, again, for QuickBooks, and Etsy takes care of everything, TurboTax. They do have some legal information that they pre-populate for you, so that's pretty good. So I would definitely recommend that. With Etsy as well, when you start, they take care of payments. They set everything up. You basically just design your site or your page. They take care of collections and disbursements. In the beginning, you can set up disbursements to be a certain threshold, like don't disperse me $1 or $2 every day. Only disperse me up to a certain amount. And then well, let's talk about the biggest downside to Etsy, which actually just changed recently. And there was a mass exodus from Etsy, although I don't want to deter anyone. Their fees increased a whole 1.5%. So that's for every transaction. So Etsy loves fees too. So they charge for listing your item, payment on your item, shipping on your item. Although you may not ship through Etsy, they still charge you a fee on it. And then they charge for your credit card fees. So you will see all of that in here. Hang on, let's see. Everything is itemized in here. So you'll see your deductions, your deposits, all their fees, and they've just gotten, luckily, recently, they've just started listing what each fee is. So you're well aware of what you're getting hit with. Right here, 6.5% transaction fee for shipping. And I actually don't ship through Etsy anymore because they hit shipping fees twice that way. I ship through Pirate Ship, which I highly recommend. Pirate Ship is basically what Etsy claims to do on their end when you use their shipping. They claim that they have a cost-effective way of shipping. It's cheaper than going through the post office. It's cheaper than just dropping it off. They give you sort of a lower cost, and the reason is based on volume. The volume that Etsy does, because Etsy is the company and all of Etsy's shops are subcontractors, is how that works. So they're able to get those discounts, but you can get the same thing through Pirate Ship. You don't need Etsy to do that. The other, let's see, thing with Etsy. Does anybody have any questions so far? Because I feel like I'm speeding through everything like I normally do.
What's the total percentage of fees when you add them all up?
So
like 10%?
And maybe I'll give you a couple questions because I kind of have to like toggle the mic to do it. So maybe we'll get another. Is there any other clarifying questions?
Cheaper than the post office. So in regards to just how so?
Yeah, so the question was just cheaper than the post office, and how so? I'm guessing it's that pirate shipping.
Pirate Ship.
Yep, and one more.
When shipping, do you have to drop it off somewhere, or they pick it up at your house?
Oh yeah, and the question was, with the shipping, do you have to drop it somewhere, or do you pick it up at your house?
Okay, so great questions. With Pirate Ship, if you were used to use them, and Etsy's the same way actually, when you use sort of these e-commerce shipping services, they put in all of the information because Etsy's storing all of your customers, I don't have a current order to show you right now. That's bad, right? They keep track of your customers. They keep track of the amounts. And if you did ship through Etsy, they would give you your packaging information and you would be able to print a label. And then you take that label, grab your box, slap it on, drop it off at the post office. All you need to do is get a receipt. Highly recommend receipts. Don't just drop them and run, because oftentimes you'll see that it hasn't shown up in the system several days later, and that's just because they've tossed it somewhere. So always get receipts when you scan your packages, when you drop them at the post office. But it'll give you options too as far as shipping services, but you select those. So those are all presets that you would do in your shop. If you are willing to ship anything expedited, that comes up as an option for your customers. If you want to ship UPS, I believe that comes up as an option if you want to do that, DHL, things like that. So all you're doing is printing and then putting it on the package, and the same exact thing goes for Pirate Ship. It's just print the label. If you even have a label printer at home for shipping, you would weigh it, measure your box, print your label, and then just drop it off at the post office. And the reason why Pirate Ship is cheaper is because they also work with volume. Except like Etsy, they have all these subcontracted sort of shops Pirate Ship works in the same way, except everybody that uses the service is kind of volume through post office and UPS. The only way, and I tried this before, directly with post office, to get a business discount by volume, it was not something that I would be doing. It's definitely strictly for commercial use if you're going direct. Otherwise, you're just going to be paying a little bit more to do that. And then I think there was one more question about shipping, but I can't remember.
It was about
Fees,
the percent overall, like what are
yeah,
they all?
it's about 10%. It is about 10% when you add it all up. I can say most of the time, for example, if I sell something and this usually happens and I get so frustrated. If I sell something for $70, I add up all the fees, it's about $10 off the top, usually. So what you can do to compensate is hike your prices. Now, here's where you get into this sort of situation where you're playing with the system, right? You're hiking your prices to compensate fees, but then you're also detracting from a potential audience. So obviously value your work and always price everything appropriately. That is huge. But if you're playing a game of making up prices to counteract fees, then maybe a different platform is better, or add that into your costs. It's all about playing sort of that game of what's most cost effective. And I actually split my store in two, and I'm using Shopify, which is the other one, because they're cheaper. The only problem is Shopify requires you to do your own advertising or you pay for it. So the visibility definitely isn't as big as Etsy. Etsy has huge, huge visibility. I mean, if you think of home goods, everybody's going to Etsy. The only problem with Etsy, though, I've noticed too, is that they do a in the spirit of homemade. So sometimes you're up against actual businesses that are manufacturing these things as opposed to homemade. So I would just keep an eye out for that.
So what I just wanted her to clarify what she just said about was it Shopify or was it Etsy or something else that is trying to have more of like a homemade feel but is actually made by other companies?
Yeah, I think you can answer that. It's Etsy. So Etsy tries to have a homemade feel. Shopify, you can do whatever you like. You know, it's more businessy.
Right.
Okay. And then I think we'll move on to the next.
Yeah,
Just
and I have
keep
some
pace.
follow-ups with some of the things that came up. So I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So what's the packaging process and how does that affect, selling product?
So the question was just about how you package your product and how that affects your selling it.
That's entirely up to you. Packaging is definitely, that's something personal. I've seen people burn their own boxes for things, and that is actually something that's personal to you. I do know that people love little goodies in their packages, but again, it's also based on your business. What does your business do? Where are they going? What product are they using? So it should be something that correlates to that. But to be cost effective as far as packaging supplies, I reuse every box I can find. Keeps my cost down because boxes are expensive and can get really expensive, and so can, whatever you stuff in your box. So if you insulate your box, if you need other packaging material, that goes all into your expenses for your business. So to keep costs down, you have to consider, what can I do that's aesthetically pleasing yet be cost effective? So that comes more of a personal kind of way to do it. And then try to do your research, and really there's more than one shipping service that offers that sort of low cost shipping. Some of them you pay for it, Pirate Ship you don't. So look around, you might find one that's better, that works for you. Some of them is definitely based on volume though.
On just for pacing. So we're gonna move on, but we'll come back in questions. So Iris, would you want to go next?
Yeah. So I started an Etsy store this last December, and I want to just share about some of the things that came up while we're talking about Etsy, and then I'll tell you a little bit about sort of why I did this and how I did this. But basically, what I wanted to do was, I don't have a lot of free time. I have a full-time job. I wanted to find a way that I could have an Etsy store, but I don't want it such that every time somebody wants to buy something from me, now this creates like stress for me. Oh man, I gotta make it. And so for that reason, I was primarily focused on what are the things where I can design the thing, but then outsource as much of the production as I can, because that way I can focus on the design, which is a part that is more fun for me. And I don't have to worry about the stress of fabrication and shipping. And on Etsy, there are 3 different ways that I know of that you can sell things. So you can sell a product that you made yourself. This is, I believe, what Christina is doing. You can sell digital products. So if you have made clip art, you can sell that on Etsy. And then the third way that they let you sell is something that is called a manufacturing partnership, where you have your own Etsy store, and it is your product because you designed it, but you're not actually hands-on involved in the fabrication of it. So that fabrication is done by somebody that is an Etsy partner. And then when somebody orders that from your Etsy store, it is the partner that does the fabrication, and then it ends up getting shipped to the customer. I'll give a little bit more detail about that in a minute. So I found the fabrication partner route particularly interesting because the kind of things I was interested in doing were designs where I can do the digital design, but then I wanted to produce a physical artifact. So yeah, let's just scroll down a little bit just so people can see this here. Yeah, great. Yeah, so I made this ear cuff, was the first thing that I started selling on Etsy. I'm actually wearing one so we can pass this around so you can see what it looks like in reality. And the design was done on a computer. I never touched any metal in order to make this. It is entirely 3D printed, and I partnered with a service called Shapeways, and what they do is on-demand 3D printing. And they have this in sort of like the more traditional materials you think of as 3D printing, like plastics, and they also do more jewelry type of materials. So they can 3D print in silver, bronze, gold, platinum. So you can get like pretty far into jewelry side of that as well. What is interesting about this is that their 3D printing process for metals starts with 3D printing a wax model, which they then which they then cast from metal. So it's a lost wax casting, and they do hand post-processing as well. So they will do polishing on site, which means that the process ends up being fairly expensive. Not as expensive as it would be if I did it myself at MakeHaven, because all of that time would be spent me doing it. But in comparison to other people that are selling similar products on Etsy, mine end up being more expensive because I'm using a more expensive process. So the big thing that ends up happening for me is that I have to pick designs that I'm going to make so that they are taking advantage of the capability that I have in this 3D printing process that you wouldn't be able to have from a cheaper process. So the fact that I picked a manufacturing partner option now has implications on which designs are going to be viable from like a business financial standpoint for me to sell on Etsy. And so this then becomes this interesting conversation about what is the overhead, how much extra am I paying, how much money am I going to make, etc. So I spent an annoying amount of time asking these exact same questions about like, how much is it actually going to cost me to put a thing on Etsy? So I want to circle back to that in a second. But basically, the big thing that I wanted to tell you is that there is this hybrid option in which you are primarily involved in the design, but then a commercial fabrication outfit is actually involved in the fabrication of the thing. This is a thing that Etsy does, and they seem to be pretty good at doing these kinds of partnerships. In some areas, I think that makes sense. Like if you're selling your own paintings, then you're not going to outsource that to somebody else. But if you're thinking about jewelry making, that is something where you could potentially outsource at least a part of fabrication to somebody else. And one option that you have when you do this is that when the item is made, rather than being shipped directly to the buyer, it can be shipped to you, and then you do whatever you want to do. You put it in your custom box, you put in a personalized note, you put in some candy, whatever you want to do, and then you ship it to the buyer. So there's an option where it comes through your home, and so you can do final customization on things like packaging, or if you needed to have a jewelry item where there are parts of it that can't be 3D printed, but they have to be handmade, you can 3D print a component of it and then integrate that into whatever the final design is. So for example, you can't like 3D print gems, but you can 3D print a ring, and then it gets shipped to you with a gem setting in it, and then you put the gem and then you ship that off to the final buyer. So I like this as a process, and it works really well for me for the business stressful life that I lead. And going back to the question that you were asking earlier, it was Michelle, right? You were Michelle. Okay, Lisa. Lisa, going to the question you were asking about how much some of these things cost on Etsy, like what I found is that it was difficult for me to get an exact sense early on because I didn't know exactly how Etsy works. And while they are transparent about their fees, understanding which fees are going to hit you when do I pay taxes versus when do I pay for shipping versus when do I pay for like listing fees, like all those things, it can be a wild ride if you have never done anything like this before. So I would definitely, one of the things that I would do is get a sense of sort of like the ballpark of prices, of costs, of overhead that you're going to have to pay Etsy. And then have a look at how much are other people selling similar things to what you want to sell, right? And if we're that kind of overhead and seeing what people are selling for right now, like if you think you can make it work, then maybe that's a good area for you. But if it looks like, like I wouldn't go competing with something that a high schooler can make in their free time because high schoolers have way more free time and want way less money for it, then it's going to be the case for me. So I'm aiming for something that is going to be more expensive, but also more intricate and more difficult to make. And in some way is going to draw on the, more experience that I have in fabrication and design. So there's definitely a degree of like figuring out what your market is that helps you navigate this question of what is the overhead. Like you have to figure out where your market is that's going to make that overhead worthwhile. And knowing like a general idea of what the overhead is helpful, but ultimately it also becomes a question of figuring out like what do you want to make and who do you want to sell it to. And yeah, so that was the main thing that I wanted to talk about is like this possibility of doing hybrid, like you're doing the design, somebody else is doing the manufacturing kind of thing that you can do on Etsy. I don't know if there were any quick questions, and then
I was just where do you find that in Etsy in a certain section?
Yeah, so I found it. So the Shapeways is the name of the company that I use for manufacturing. They have been around for a really long time, and I've known about them for a really long time. So when I was originally researching this, I went on the Shapeways website, and then I found that they can directly link to Etsy. You can come at it from the other direction as well. You can come from Etsy and then discover who their partners are. But basically, you can go looking for Etsy manufacturing partners and Etsy fabrication partners and figure that out. Yeah.
If you're looking on Etsy at like similar items to see what other people are pricing it at, is there any way to see like how many they're selling? Are they actually selling it at the price that they're listing?
No, you don't get to see and you can't see how what their markup is either, right? So like you just know what prices they listed it at, and you have no idea if any of them are selling at that price.
Doesn't say like sales. Like
Yeah, that's
number.
overall sales. That's not that.
That's not
piece.
that product.
Yeah, it's not going to be itemized.
Gotcha.
eBay has it.
I just noticed that we're muted. Does that mean that no one else on the call can hear us?
We're muted on the monitor, but not on the computer in front of him. So it's working, I think.
Does it show the number of views? So that could be
yes,
a way to gauge.
I think. And there was another thing I wanted to say, which is that if you're not sure if financially a thing is going to work for you on Etsy, one thing that you can do is you can limit the stock. So you can say, I only have 3 of these to sell. And that way, even if you're completely wrong about how it's going to work out financially, you're not gonna lose more than 3 times whatever your error was,
Yeah,
right?
it's
Like, yeah, there's no,
competitor, that's.
Right,
what she
yeah.
does, Yeah.
And so that's one thing that I did is I initially limited the stock of my, it's a 3D printed item. There's infinity of them, right? There's like no practical limit on how many I could sell, but I wanted to get a sense of how much it's going to cost me to sell it so that I can adjust to the pricing before I increase that limit.
But that's nice too, if you're not, like, just so you can limit yourself, like, I can't do
Absolutely.
thousands of them.
Absolutely.
That's what comes in.
Yeah, and you can have an item listed that is custom made on Etsy as well, where it will appear there, but they can buy it, but you are saying, I'm gonna start making this after you actually, complete your order. Like, I don't have one in hand to sell you right now.
That's something I would probably do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was gonna ask for outsourcing, how do you ensure that the third party is like, I guess, making your product to specification? What are some of the challenges?
Yeah,
that you
so
face with-
I literally bought one of my own to see what it's like. Like, the reason that I have this is that I went to Etsy and I gave Etsy some money to send me one of my items so I can see what it looks like. And there's a way that you can do that where your store is not visible to the public and you have access to it. So you can go through the whole process and see what it feels like. And in fact, because Shapeways can do multiple materials, one of the things that I did is I ordered the same thing in 4 different metals, actually 2 different metals with 2 different types of polish on it. So I can see what they look like and take pictures of them so I can put them on the Etsy website to figure out if, like, which materials that I think make sense to try selling. And then once I got an idea of that, like, I didn't buy the most, like, I didn't pay Etsy to like ship me like a 14 karat rose gold version of my thing. But you can buy it because once I understood that the process is going to work, it was easy for me to say, okay, also let people buy this in gold.
Well, but if it's out of spec, is it easy to remedy?
Yes, up to a point,
Okay.
right? Yeah.
So I think that
You want to
maybe a very quick one, but I just want to keep it moving.
Yeah.
So yep.
Concerning the manufacturer, do you have any guarantees that he won't be, making that part that you designed for somebody else or for him?
Now you're getting into like intellectual property kind of questions. That is a great question to ask. I would be very hesitant about shipping my design off to somewhere where we know that the market is prone to doing that, where intellectual property protections are not as good. I know that Shapeways is based in the US, so if that was an issue, I know that I would have recourse within the US legal system. Yeah, I would not take a design that I felt very attached to and ship it to a manufacturer in Shenzhen and expect them not to, turn around with their own copy of it.
Are any of the manufacturers making electronic circuit boards and stuffing them?
Let's come back to that one later because I think it's much more of an electronics question than a general, selling things question. But yeah.
Great. Thank you, Iris. I think we'll jump over to Paul to talk about what you've done. And you're broadcasting from your own one, so you'll do your own screen share.
The year is 2018, and I need about an extra $100 a month. And I find out that you can make money with a YouTube channel. And I studied it. I studied, everything about it because I don't want to do a lot of work. I really and truly don't. I don't want to get another job, but I just need like $100 a month. So I started a YouTube channel. I don't want competition. So what are you going to start a YouTube channel on that provides no competition that I and there's just toilet paper showing up everywhere. And so people are looking for some kind of alternative. So I happen to buy every bidet on the market. Only one was legit. The other 2 were, like one of those AliExpress, who knows what the original purpose of these things were. And I loved it. Did a couple of videos, the unboxing video, unboxing videos. If you have a YouTube channel, the mirror neurons kick on and everybody watches them. They're terrific. And all of a sudden, like those were the most watched videos. And then I thought to myself, there's really not, everybody wants to try a bidet. Well, not everybody here, but, backpackers that are, being a little, more sensitive to this, they want to try a bidet, but it's scary because we're in America And it's very hard to find a place that has a bidet in America. You go to some hotels in Asia, the only reason why there's toilet paper is for the American tourists. And so I was like, you know, there was one video on how to bidet by a very famous guy. And it was old, like, you know, 8, 9 years old, like YouTube terms, that's like ancient. And I thought I had a little bit of an advantage. I'm a middle school teacher, and not just your average teacher, but I know the neurological tricks that I can play in a video to, like, you know, there's reasons why that, you know, certain videos have certain things. And if I can construct the perfect how to bidet video, that would gain me a ton of views. And it did. It was a ridiculously long video. I literally followed a lot of the principles that car salespeople use. You know why you sit around in a car dealership for so long when you buy a car? Even if you hate sitting there, you still start feeling at home in the dealership, and you're more likely to say yes. So I decided not to go with a 2 or 3 minute video, but to go with a 30-minute video, pulled out a bunch of tricks. Everybody was loving it. Oh, this is great, this is great, this is great. And then it was March 1st of 2020. I hope I have that right. And my kids and I are working on a project, pick a problem in the world and solve it. And so we got our 3D software open, and I was like, I'm gonna make my own bidet, because the #1 bidet that's out there, it's got problems. The other AliExpress sort of bidets, those aren't even worth buying. And now that I know what I want, I could design my own. And 2 weeks later, the world is shut down. But I'm still officially getting paid. And so I find myself at home with no schedule, but I'm getting paid. And I'm like, I feel guilty. What should I do? I pull out my file that I was working on with the kids, and I start working on my bidet, print one off, and it shows up in a video, and someone's like, hey, I would love to test it out for you. So I send it out to be tested, and they love it. So I went through testing for about 2 years across the world. They were tested on every continent. I like saying that, except for Antarctica and Africa and South America. But it was tested all over the place, and people kept having positive sort of things. And I was ready to start selling them. Something I would totally, actually, my mouth is getting dry. Just, I don't know if you can hear me changing my tone. Just thinking about that moment, like, holy mackerel, I don't know what's going on. Wow. Anyway, geez, I'm having some kind of reaction. And I'm starting to make them, because this is when I heard about what they were doing with the coronavirus. The companies were mass making them before approval, so that when there was approval, they can send them out. So I still have some testers to go through it. I've got like 200 bidets in my house. I'm making them one at a time on a 3D printer. And that is when I get an email, Paul, your bidet cracked. 2 weeks later, your bidet cracked, bidet cracked, bidet cracked. Apparently I had a shelf life of 6 months of constant use. And then water worked into the seams and it cracked. And I didn't know what to do. I was I was just gonna scrap the whole thing. And I said, I need someone who specializes in plastics. Searching, and guess what comes up? MakeHaven. And so I come and I meet with one of the guys. Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh. I don't know what. Dude, I do this for a living. I don't know what's happening. I meet with one of the guys, and he didn't really have a good idea for what was happening. Somebody else was in the room who was listening to the conversation. And he said, why don't you try a resin printer? So that's the printer downstairs that the platform dips into like the liquid plastic and then ultraviolet light, and then it comes up. And I'd never heard of one before. And he took me through, I had my files, I printed some prototypes here. And within 48 hours, I had outgrown MakeHaven. I had my own printer at home and was making them, sent them out for another year of testing. And then I needed a place to sell them. And again, if you had bet me $10,000 I'd be sitting here however many years ago, I'm not the sort of person that ever had this in my mind that I was going to be selling to an international audience. And I looked around, there's Etsy, there's obviously eBay, Amazon was too tough for, I didn't want to, that's a whole nother level. What's the other one? Shopify. There's some other little websites out there. And I was really drawn by one particular site. This is the one that's on?
Yep, you should be.
Okay. I was really, or is it still mine? I'm looking at mine. I was really drawn by this story of a site I found called Go Imagine. Go Imagine launched in February of 2020. So you can probably guess how well their first year went. And what drew me to Go Imagine was that they were trying to be kind of a lot of the things that Etsy and eBay were not. One thing is that they are a maker's website. You have to apply in order to get a shop. And so they're going to look at what you're making. They're going to make sure that it's not being mass produced. They're making sure it's not copyright infringement. They're making sure that you are the one who is making it. They're making sure that you're not going to have, like for example, I could have my bidets mass produced in some plastic shop or something like that. So it's not a mass produced item. And it's when everything that's on there is just made by the individual. And so I thought that was pretty cool. The other thing that I liked is when I was going to sell these, I had the intention of donating a section of my, like I didn't know what I was doing, 50 cents per bidet, $1 per bidet to Common Ground Camp. My kids grew up there, my kids work there, great place. And one of the things that Go Imagine does is that percentage that they take from each sale, which, it varies on the level, it goes straight to charity. So it's a nonprofit. So all of the profits go straight to charity. And the only thing that they keep to run the show is that monthly fee that people pay. So there's that aspect of it that people really like. Like a lot of the other places, there is a community of people, but right now it's totally got that small town feel. Just literally, if you want a sticker or a postcard, like the person that sent me that was like employee 2. Like you're still talking to, like, you can still go, the guy that started it still gets involved. The people that started it are still on the Facebook page. So for example, when someone put up to the group, hey, has anyone heard of, help me with the letters, chat? What's it? Yes. One of the people on there was like, hey, if you're interested, let's do a workshop, next week, and how you can integrate this into your place. The other thing that I really like is at some point, it's supposed to happen towards the end of this year, they are turning ownership of the site over to the makers. And so if you sign up for the site and you are one of the makers that are on there, you literally will be an owner. And so decisions are going to be made by a board. And I know that sounds kind of like wishy-washy, but it's not the process that they're taking this through to have it be maker owned is so far I've been impressed. So again, it's kind of like, it still has that small town feel. I love visiting New York. I've been in New York a couple of weeks ago. I was in Boston last month, but this still has that that little hometown sort of feel to it. One of the neat things too, and I'm gonna be willing to guess that, say like Etsy probably has something close to this, but this is my landing site. So nowhere on here do you really catch that I'm selling on Go Imagine. I don't know, does it actually say it at the bottom? Let's say it at the bottom. So yeah, so at the very, 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 very bottom, it says Go Imagine. But otherwise, it kind of just looks like it's my own site. Everything that I do with the bidet is very hokey, from the videos to the website to the descriptions and everything else. That's kind of my brand. So my brand is almost just like it's the little cottage shop. And as a matter of fact, on one of the websites that was reviewed, he said, Paul's bidet is a cottage industry. And from what we can take away from his videos, it's a very, very small cottage. So it literally is just this little hole in my house. And again, it's like part of the selling. I'm trying to think of which. Yeah, they're all like, quirky little things. Why are they pictured with dinosaurs? No.
Because you chose to take pictures with dinosaurs.
No.
So is that the little thing sitting on top of that bottle?
Yes. What's the problem I'm trying to solve?
Oh, it's like scaling.
Get rid of toilet paper. Just like, yeah, make it extinct, just like the dinosaurs.
Is that a horse or you got
It is a horse because I made that bidet and I was like, this is the ugliest color. I brought it out. I made 10 of them and I was stuck with these 10 plus the resin. I was like, what am I going to do? I brought it out to my wife and she's like, that's my favorite color. And I was like, it's ugly. And I decided to put it up as ugly green. It was so ugly that no dinosaur would take a picture of it. See, you gotta think, you gotta go deep with these.
So is there stories about why?
You pick one, go ahead.
Well, I'm saying that somebody looks at this, how do they,
Pick one, I'll show you the story.
the big dinosaur in the middle,
This one right
the
here?
bottom one, yeah.
That's the only one you don't want to start with.
Jeez, and I want to start with that one.
Here, I'll just. Star Wars fans? Not enough. Okay, we'll go with this one.
Oh, okay, there it is.
So just a couple line. You drive a Subaru just in case the bridge is out and you need to cross the river. Flannel is your fabric of choice. Avocado toast is your breakfast of champions. I made the kind of green holy hiker pack back in the day just for you. This modern pastel color fits perfectly into your lumberjack lifestyle, even though the only lumber you might acquire is from a big box store that you struggle to get home because all you own is that little Subaru. Oh, sorry. And it goes on from there. So, the copy on each one of these is made to kind of stand out from the very standardized competitor, which is a Kulo Clean. But just something, again, something different, quirky. People mentioned packaging. And also Iris mentions, not wanting to do a lot of work. I don't want to do a lot of work. So what do I do with my packaging? It's as minimal as possible because we're eco-friendly. So there's not a note, there's not an extra piece of paper, there's not a piece of packaging, there's not a thank you note, and that's all, upfront people know. And that's part of the branding, is that there's nothing in the packaging fancy. And so that's how I get away with, doing a little less work compared to, some other things where it's the cutesy note and everything else. And again, like, that works. And I got a lot of the ideas from those cutesy companies are embedded all throughout, this website. But that's one of the things that I do to cut back on the extra work. Go ahead.
So I see the little green thing on top of the bottle, but
Yep.
I can't imagine at all how it works. Do you have any demonstration videos?
It's, you just type in how to use a backpacking bidet and my videos are at the top of the list. You go to YouTube and it'll be the top one. And it will absolutely demonstrate exactly how to do it. And it's the only video out there that really demonstrates how to do it. So
That's still allowed to be on YouTube.
that's still allowed to be on YouTube. Yes. Zero, I had a tree positioned perfectly during some of the demonstration, but that's really not about, selling and packaging. So I think we'll hold that to the end, just like the electronics.
You said you sent it out to get tested.
Yeah.
Did you have a patent already? Or
So there's no patent on this. Here's the reality. If I was going to go through the patent process, I've looked at the price of it. I literally today with my students, this is what we talked about. We started our 3D printing unit today. And I said, you are going to grow up in a world where patents are useless because I buy one product at a store, come home and scan it, and I print it. It's done. And it's really, it's done. And so as far as I'm concerned, anybody can rip that off. Who's going to spend the time? It is, believe it or not, there's 2 years of time figuring out the reason why it's kind of positioned like that. It's hiding the holes. Those holes are the perfect diameter. They're the perfect distance apart. And so when you hold it a certain distance from your butt, they actually all converge as one. So a little amount of water produces a stronger burst on your butt. And so, and then in my head, I needed to come up with this one first. So the other ideas can then be the 2.0. So if someone starts copying this, someone actually copied my design, sold it on Etsy, even gave me credit and said they took it from my design. And it's funny, I went to show the kids today and it's no longer there. And I've always said to anybody that wanted to listen that guy will not be selling them 6 months from now, because I know the design he stole was one of my early prototypes, which broke after 6 months. And he made it more ultralight, which means it would even break sooner. So there's a lot of unhappy, because he did not test his. From the moment he saw my picture to the moment he started selling them, there simply wasn't time to do any kind of long-term testing. I needed long-term testing because I know a through hike can last someone at least 6 months on the Appalachian Trail or Pick Your Trail. So I needed at least that amount of everyday use. So I needed, waited that long. And I don't know if you want to go through some other things. People mentioned shipping. Pirate shipping, if you're going to do anything international, which I know at this point in your time, you might think to yourself, I'm not selling international. They have this drop shipping for $10. I could send it practically anywhere in the world for $10. It's crazy. And that's a special feature. You gotta have to, it doesn't come automatic. You have to find it and sign up for it. I use a company called Shippo, and it's integrated into the GoImagine site. And so I literally never go to the GoImagine dashboard to do any of my shipping. I go to Shippo. All of the, it shows who bought things. I go purchase, 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 right down the list. All the labels spit out all at once. And every Monday I drop them off at the post office because I can no longer trust my postal carrier. And I'm serious. And someone mentioned about pickup. You can schedule the post office, you can schedule pickups. So if I have 15 packages, I could the night before sign up at the post office. And as long as they're going to come during the normal mail and pick them up, there's no charge.
Where do you keep them? Like, can you keep them like on your front step? Like,
I put them right in the mailbox. Yeah.
So if they're too big for that, you can't.
Yeah, so mine are smaller, but you can keep them. I believe the front step is also free. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure as long as it's at your house during normal mail pickup. If you want to schedule outside of normal pickup, that is more money. And again, as you're considering your shops, I think one of the neat things to consider is try not to compete with people. I mean, that's literally, even if you're making something that's kind of common, how could you twist it? How could you make it different so that you don't have competition? Because your choice is going to be competing with everybody else, which means it has to be a whole lot better than everybody else. Or as new sellers, your SEO has to be a whole lot better, which is becoming less and less important as Google, changes their algorithms. And, it's a tough one to like compete with everyone else. On GoImagine, I see on the boards all the time people complaining, I haven't gotten a sale in 3 years, I haven't gotten a sale in 2 years. And you look at their website and it's the same exact thing that a million other people are selling with no twist on it. It's literally the same. So whatever you sell, what's that twist that you can make so that you're solving someone's problem? And I know that sounds like, oh, maybe mine doesn't solve a problem, but it can if you just give it the right twist. People were talking about fees. So PayPal is going to be 3.49% plus 49 cents for every sale. Stripe is going to be 2.9% plus 30 cents for every sale. On GoImagine, I'm in the level of 3.5% for every sale goes to charity. So when you add that up, you're close to, what is that, 7%? Somewhere around there. If you're only doing like, one a month or something like that, then I think it's like 4 or 4.5%. Don't quote me on that. They have it on the website. So it's a little bit more. And also GoImagine does all the taxes. So they're going to collect Texas tax, Connecticut taxes, and all the other taxes and send them off. So you don't ever have to think about that. I think that's it.
Would you say it's pretty safe to say with all these that if you like overfigured, say 10% for the fees, then you'll be safe?
You'd be safe. That sounds like that would be
But shipping, like, I don't know if you're counting fees as shipping. Shipping can really get you.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, just more the fees. Like, I know like what it's going to cost to ship my stuff because I've done it, but it's like the fees. I'm like, I don't know what to figure on. So
I would say if you're going to start off, you're probably not going to be selling, 50 a week. And so again, like I think the GoImagine one, the smallest one, and again, I wish I wrote it down, I think is 5.5%.
Okay.
But also that comes with a smaller monthly payment. So I think it's maybe like $5 a month or something. So I pay $10 a month, which is the most expensive. But then I get only 3.5% transaction fees. And so the way that it's built so that the more you pay per month, the more products you get. But I did the figuring in my head and I'm like, I'm not going to ever have 1,000 products, but I'm selling more of my smaller number of products. Right. So for me, it still makes sense to pay the extra to get down to the 3.5% and pay the extra money per month. Right.
I think we can stop maybe there and then go to questions. I have maybe quickly, I'll show you guys just the back end of Shopify since we've talked about that. And then we can break into just more free-form questions and so on.
While you're saying that, I think between 5 and 10% is a reasonable starting estimate for how much you're going to pay in things like transaction fees, like credit card, just general payment processing stuff.
Right.
And like listing fees depending on what side you're on. et
And
cetera.
I noticed like with my product, when I see other people sell it, they put like plus shipping, so they go to back.
Right.
Can you stop
The prevailing wisdom on these kind of marketplace sites is that people are more likely to buy something that is more expensive than it is listed as free shipping.
Right.
Then even if it's the same total
Right,
amount,
right.
people.
You're right.
Yeah.
I like the free shipping.
Yeah, exactly. So, so that's a thing to keep an eye on, is like, if you're gonna charge people separately for shipping, you might eat into
Go the other
your
way.
sales.
Raise your price. Yeah, raise the price.
Yeah,
I have free shipping, right? So it's $12.50 and you get free shipping. So if you order 2, you're now paying me for 2, but I can still put 2 in the package for the same amount. You order 3, 4, someone just ordered, I think I can figure I did up to like 10. So someone just ordered 8. And so all of that shipping that's added on to each one, that
You get to keep
becomes,
it.
yeah.
Right.
So what I'm sharing here is root pods. This is my brother's invention, but I'm more comfortable with the technology. So I set up the website some time ago and he's maintained it. Basically, it's a little pod that goes on a plant. You give it some hormones and it sprouts roots wherever you put the pod on it. So it's a way to clone or reproduce plants. So this is his Shopify site. It's a standalone website. It's at rootpods.com. You can see he puts a little description about it. And then there is a menu. So you can go into, there's about, which is going to bring you some additional information. And then there is, so, he writes, about how he made it and developed it. There's some roots growing out of a pod. And then we have shop now. So we'll go to root pod kits, and there are various kits. So he doesn't have too many products, the raw pods, the kit, and then these each should have a landing page. So if you can go into that, you can see there's a interface here. He only has one option, smoke gray. Maybe he'll add one in the future. So say you wanted to add multiple. There's some pictures you can go through similar to Amazon, and then we can say add to cart. And you have a regular shopping cart, and we can say checkout, and it's going to give us your standard, enter your PayPal or put in your credit card and check out. So on the back end, there is this interface. This is actually how you build the website. So there's this sales channel in the bottom part where you have the online store, you pick your theme, you select and edit your pages. So I'm just loading it. So it doesn't have a lot of individual pages. You make products, and then those products have different settings. So we were looking at, I'll just pick one of it. You add your description, your photos, all pretty simple. There's the smoke gray, what your price is, how it's listed. They help you with some of these sales channels. So they'll list it on Google. They'll help you list it on Walmart. You can list it on Amazon. There's an integration that way. And then you can track things like inventory. When things are sold, they become orders. And then it helps you track those orders. So you can see that they are paid. And then you can go into an individual one and see information about it. When it was fulfilled, you can automatically print out a label. So this one says reprint, but you would print the label, you'd print it from home, and same thing, you drop it at your shipping. Just to bring you to the next level, which is it also sells on Amazon, and he has been selling it individually, where he is selling it as a provider and then he's shipping it. There's another option where you actually send a bulk amount. So you have to have a certain qualifying amount that you would sell, and It helps if you have a certain volume, but then Amazon will do the shipping. And so that helps you to be prime, that helps you to be overnight. They charge you a fulfillment fee, but they also take care of returns and all those sorts of things. So he's going to move that way because he's, especially now, it's pretty low volume. And he's trying to get a bunch of products going. This is just one. But he would prefer to be able to travel or do things and not have random one-off orders that he has to rush to fulfill. Otherwise risk losing a reputation. So Amazon on the back end has its own little Amazon Seller Central. This is where he can, so first of all, the integration with Shopify pre-populated some of this, but then you can also go in and tweak and change what is on there. So you can see here he has an order. So this is an order that might have come through Amazon, then gets pushed over to the other system. We can go to inventory. And the way Amazon works is if you have a product that has a universal product code, you would put that in, and then they aggregate the different sellers into the same product. So the first thing it'll ask you is like, do you have a product? Are you reselling a product that's already a product out there? And then so you don't create a new page. So since he was creating a new product, he created a new page with a new UPC. And there's a website, there's some scammy websites that have scammy UPCs, but you want to get an official UPC. That's the little barcode, the universal product code, and you want to get one for each variation so that you can, on these platforms, that is often the way that they are, identified. So you can see there's a little interface, you can see the orders, you can see the payments. And like the other ones, you can see there's a number of products he has where he can set the price. He can do various things. You can edit the product. You see there's a whole set of options, but we're just going to go into edit. And one of the things we've talked about is he really has not maximized what you can do with Amazon. There's lots. You can do marketing and promotion. You can really, tweak the language and descriptions and look at the compliance. They also care whether or not you are fulfilling fast, and the reviews matter in how you're being listed. So making sure you're handling your customers and so on. But you can see it's the same thing. You can add a bunch of images here. I could upload more images for that particular product. I could define variations. This has, what am I offering? It allows you to do discounts and other types of things to be able to be listed on Amazon. And his traffic, a ton of it does. I think he says, like, without even trying, it's like 2/3 of his traffic is from Amazon, and he gets more of a fee, but he gets more traffic. So that just gives you a very quick view on that.
The first website, when you said, I created this website and it was,
Yep.
and then, is that something you guys created through Shopify or?
Yeah. So,
okay, so you can create a website through Shopify.
Yeah. So Shopify is kind of the all-in-one package where it has a checkout. You are still going to have to connect a payment processor. You're still going to need to add like integrations for it to operate. It's like the little add-ons that you do in the software. Though it's fairly achievable.
What are examples of kinds of add-ons done?
Well, so one is just the Amazon add-on.
Let me ask it from a different direction.
Yeah.
If I have a thing that I'm making right now and I want a website for it through Shopify, can I get my thing in people's hands without additional integrations, or does okay. So
Shopify, it natively, they'll charge you a monthly fee, and what they'll do is they will add, they'll allow you to build a web page, just like I said, very simple. You don't have a lot of template options. It's like an about page, and then you define your products, and it will list your products on a little product gallery, and then it will have that checkout. And there's certain things you can change and define, but they've pretty much got a standard way they do it.
Okay.
I believe that they do not have a payment. So you still, the one integration you have to do would be a payment processor. So you'd have to get a Stripe or a PayPal or one of the other ones.
Venmo, I saw something like Venmo.
They probably don't have Venmo for an online checkout. They might, but it's not a standard way that people check out right now, to my knowledge. So I'd recommend having something that processes a credit card. Yes.
Quick question on Amazon. So does your brother have to like ship 100 units to Amazon so it's on their shelf that they can ship it?
No. So right now what Amazon does is Amazon passes on, like Amazon's just being the in-between person. We list it and they tell them that he has an order. He has to send it. And if the customer, and a few times he's been traveling and just forgot or whatever, and he didn't fulfill the order, and then he got dinged because the customer complained and that hurt his listing. He got delisted. He had to like write them and tell them what happened, apologize, and then got relisted. So it's like they are controlling it so that you are not scammy. And so it's easier for him. He's moving to a model, but he has to build up his inventory. So he has to make a whole bunch of them so that they can actually then distribute it to a bunch of their centers. And then they can do like the overnight shipping because they're not going to have it in one place and ship. So there's some minimums you have to meet. And we haven't done that yet. So he's looking at it.
So either he can be the person who fills the order, or if you want to, you can go to and let them do it.
But they'll take a fee.
But what if he was the person who was fulfilling the order and someone wanted their money back? Then they contact Amazon. How does that work?
They would put in when I think it goes through Amazon, it's like a return request, and then you can like debate it. And I haven't been the one dealing with that in particular. I helped him set up. I know he's dealt with that sort of thing.
But he has to do the rebate.
Yeah, you have to do it. I think once you do the fulfillment, they will do it for you automatically. Like they just send another one from their warehouse and let you know that they bill you. They just automate it. Yeah.
If you have a website, can you integrate Shopify into your website somehow for your sales, or do you need to like make a website on Shopify?
Yeah, so I am not an expert on that particular question, but my takeaway from having built a Shopify site is there's nothing in it that's like, hey, embed this in a different site. It's really made for somebody who's going to use Shopify to build the site, do the whole thing, and that's their headquarters and that's their dashboard. Where something like PayPal or Stripe, where you're just generating one-off buttons and you don't have the same niceties as far as like a full platform, that's where you'd be building your own website.
Shopify has the same kind of button functionality. So yeah, so you can set up your thing on Shopify, do the same thing, like buttons, and then put those on your website. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. I stand corrected.
I have purchased things where I'm like, oh, I didn't know this was Shopify. And just after I placed.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I just hadn't seen that.
So what's the legal process before starting to sell anything? Is there like an LLC for all these businesses or how does this work?
No, you can, so you can run this as a sole proprietorship in which you don't have to incorporate, which is to say you don't have to pay any kind of incorporating money, whether LLC or a different kind of corp. It has impact on your taxes. You're paying taxes differently depending on how your business is structured. And I want to say that when I signed up for Etsy asked me like which of those models I was operating under, and then the taxes that they collect and report are based on that.
And they take care of all that process.
Yes.
Because I know Amazon, you have to like register your business, right? Is that at least?
Good question. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, he has an LLC, so we went through it, and I don't know if we would have hit a brick wall otherwise. I think the reason to have the LLC is if you have a product that has some associated liability.
Yeah.
And if you're doing it as a sole proprietor, you personally are liable for the damage it has. And
yeah, there's no separation between the business bank account and your bank account.
That's not a requirement, you're saying?
It's not a requirement. And if you're doing something really simple or just beginning and trying and don't want to be held up, it's a completely reasonable thing to do. But once you grow, you're going to want to
I see.
protect yourself against things.
Yeah, we were just saying, we're both LLCs, we sell food, I sell
Mhm.
dog food,
Like a
candy,
yeah,
but we
Yeah.
also have insurance.
yeah, and it's cheap. It's like, I don't know, I think it's worth it, like
Who do you
$40 a
use for
month.
your insurance?
Hanover, I use my insurance agent, like car insurance people
Yeah.
found it and researched it for me. But it's like 1 million, it's like 1 million, 3 million.
JK, something.
It's a lot, and it's not, I feel like it's worth it, yeah.
Other questions? Yeah.
I just had a question for anyone on the panel. Like you had touched upon, my biggest fear is that orders come in and I ignore them. Like, how do you know you have an order? Like, how do you, let's start there. How do you even know you have an order?
So I can just speak to Shopify real quick. There's an app on my phone and I had to mute it because it would go ding and then have a push notification every time it got an order. And there's a dashboard that shows whether, and you mark fulfilled when you print out that label and then you drop it off. And so it kind of tracks it for you. It helps you to track. You want to say otherwise?
One of the things that Etsy does to help you manage this is that they let you set an expectation in your listing about how soon you will ship it. So when it says, like when they're clicking on, I want to buy this item right next to the price or something like that, it says expected fabrication time. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, exactly. And the purpose of that is to set an expectation on the buyer's end about when they might even see any kind of tracking number or anything like that, right? And so what you will do is if you're sitting on your Etsy every day and you are ready to go, you're just, waiting at home to make it, then sure, you can set that to like 1 or 2 days. But if you're, if you have other things going on in your life and you're gonna, check that like maybe like once every 3 days, once a week, then adjust those expectations accordingly. Because the big issue is not that it took you to, however long it took you, the big issue is that they expected it to come sooner and now they're complaining, like it becomes a whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to say anything about your platform?
I have a banner on mine, with the exception of Prime bidet times, there are Prime bidet buying times. There are. What I do is I say any bidet ordered after this date will not be shipped until, and it's a
I
2-week
saw that,
window.
yeah.
And that allows me, normally I pack every Saturday, I ship every Monday,
So you have
but
a
that
routine.
allows me to have that time. And sometimes I might do it in the middle of the week. Like I know there's someone who mentioned in their notes, like they're heading off to a hike. So I'll pack them earlier this week, but that gives me that window. Again, there's certain times of the year, coming up spring, and absolutely from the beginning of November till December, which it's every week. But it allows you that flexibility. And it also, people don't expect that kind of response back immediately in their head. They're like, okay, I'm waiting for that date.
Right, so they don't get complaining.
So before you sold your first product, what was the biggest challenge you faced?
Total and absolute fear that it would fail
Okay.
and not be accepted, which is probably why I spent so much time testing it. And I needed not 1 positive, not 2 positive, not 3 positive, not 4 positive, but like again and again and again and again and again and again and again. Because eventually you're gonna have a problem.
Yeah.
This past June, the end of June into July, there was a 2-week period in which I had 7 bidets crack. I've since backed it up to, I think what happened was they baked in my mailbox and they were shipped during the hottest time to Arizona and New Mexico. And they probably sat in those mailboxes, and after doing a little bit of research, that probably weakened it. But I needed enough positive things so that when something went wrong, I still believed in myself and the product. And it kind of sounds silly, but it's almost like something that built up that confidence. So you got it.
Did you send them the new product eventually?
Oh, if it cracks, they get one out immediately. And the other issue too, just to keep in the back of your head, is I probably have 2 to 3% of all packages that get lost in the mail. What's today? Thursday? Wednesday. On Monday, I received 3 emails alone because it seemed like one of the centers put the packages through the envelope thing. So it popped the bidets out the packages. So everybody got empty bidet packages with just a little hole at the end. So, and that's built into the price, because now I know, because that was 1, 2, 3, that was 5 bidets that I have to replace, 3 things of shipping I have to pay for over again. So, yeah. customer service, there's a reason why people hire out customer service to other
Yeah.
countries or don't provide it at all. That is the #1 amount of time that gets spent not making, not packaging, not doing anything else, custom going back and forth with questions and emails and problems. Yeah.
So maybe, I think we're coming to, the close of when we'd say we're going to talk. So if there's any burning questions, now would be the time to jump in. But otherwise, I think it's likely that if you wanted to ask one of the panelists a question, you could come up after, or we could chat. So unless there are any burning questions, I think we'll bring this to a close. All right, thank you. Thank you for everyone. Thank you to Christina, who I turned off the camera on by mistake.
I'm still here.
Yes. Oh, waving goodbye. Yep, thank you.